You've heard people say, "I'm just seeing things as they are." No, you're not. What you call reality is not a neutral feed. It's a carefully edited broadcast, stitched together by your brain, your beliefs, and your attention. You don't wake up and meet the world. You wake up and meet your own filter. And that filter is not passive. It's coding. What I'm about to walk you through is simple, but once you actually let it in, you won't be able to look at your life the same way again. Not your past, not your patterns, not the world you think you're stuck in. Because the core truth is this: you're not looking at reality. You're looking at what your observer has selected. At the smallest scale, physics already broke the old story. The world is not a solid machine grinding away, independent of you. It's a field of possibilities that behaves differently depending on whether it's being watched. That's the point of the famous double-slit experiment. When particles are fired through two slits without being measured, they don't act like tiny bullets. They act like waves, smeared out, exploring every path at once, creating an interference pattern on the back wall. Pure potential. But the moment you observe which slit they go through, everything changes. The wave of possibilities collapses. The particle chooses a single path. One outcome becomes real, and all the others vanish. Observation isn't just discovering what's there. It's part of what decides what becomes real at all. People hear this, nod, and then go straight back to living as if it's just a weird lab trick with no connection to their life. But your entire life is playing out on the same principle. Every day, you wake up inside your own version of a double-slit experiment. There are infinite ways you could interpret your circumstances, infinite ways you could respond to what happens, infinite futures sitting in potential. The you who repeats the pattern, the you who breaks it, the you who never even tries. You don't experience all of them. You experience the one your observer keeps collapsing. How? Through attention. Your attention is not a neutral flashlight. It's a vote. Every time you lock onto something with emotion, you're selecting one version of reality and letting the others decay in the background. Most people use this power against themselves. They wake up and immediately scan for problems. What's wrong with my life? What I don't have yet? Who disappointed me? What might go badly today? They call it being realistic, but what they're actually doing is rehearsing and reinforcing the same timeline. They're not just noticing what is, they're casting the exact same vote they did yesterday. Same focus, same emotional charge, same choices, same outcomes. Then they say, "See, this is just my life." No, that's just their observer effect, on autopilot. You can see this in real events. Two people lose their job on the same day. One collapses inward, obsesses over loss, replays humiliation, and slowly builds a story that the world is against them. Their brain starts deleting every sign of possibility because it contradicts the narrative. The other person still feels the shock, still feels fear, but chooses to give their attention to different questions. What does this free me from? What becomes possible now? Where can this push me that I never would have gone voluntarily? Same crisis, different observation, different timeline. This isn't willpower, it's focus. One observer is collapsing loss over and over. The other is collapsing potential until a path appears. Your nervous system is built to support this. Neuroscience already tells you. Your brain is not a camera recording everything. It's a prediction machine. It filters out most of what's happening and only shows you what matches your expectations and what you keep highlighting with attention. If you constantly feed it, stories of scarcity, betrayal, and failure. You train your perception to look for confirmation. You stop seeing doors. You only see walls. If you train it to look for openings, patterns, synchronicities, and micro-opportunities, you don't suddenly become delusional. You simply become able to notice what was invisible to you before. The field didn't change. Your observer did. On top of that, your attention is not operating in a vacuum. You're inside a system that actively tries to control it. Algorithms, headlines, feeds, notifications, all of them are designed to hijack the observer, drag your focus to fear, outrage, distraction, and keep you collapsing the same low, anxious reality with millions of other people. That's the collective observer effect. When millions of minds fixate on the same story, crisis, division, threat, that version of the world becomes heavier, louder, more real. Not because it's the only truth, but because it's the one being constantly selected. And you feel it, not just as information, but as chemistry in your body. Your nervous system syncs with the field it's swimming in. This is why you can go from calm to panicked in 10 minutes of scrolling. The field isn't neutral. It's shaped by what enough observers agree to keep watching. So where does that leave you? If your perception is shaped by habit, your attention is being farmed by systems bigger than you, and your brain is biased toward confirming your own story. Where is the leverage? It starts with a brutal question. What am I actually observing all day? And what is that collapsing into my reality? Not what you say you focus on. What your mind actually feeds on when nobody's checking. Most people don't want to look at that, because the moment you see it clearly, you lose the right to pretend you're just unlucky. But if you don't look, nothing changes. So, you start here. When you wake up, what's your first observation? Do you immediately scan for what's wrong, what's missing, what could go badly? Or do you give even 10 seconds to the possibility that something could go right? When you move through your day, where does your mind drift? Back to old grudges, rehearsed fears, comparisons, worst-case scenarios. At night, before you sleep, what movie are you replaying? The failures, the embarrassments, the disappointments, or the future you claim you want? What you keep observing becomes what your nervous system accepts as how life is. You are not punished for this. You are simply mirrored. That's another piece people don't like hearing. Your life is not judging you. It's reflecting you. You can fight with the reflection as much as you want. Blame the job, blame the partner, blame the country, blame the timing. But the mirror won't move first. It never does. Try to manipulate the image from the outside, and you'll exhaust yourself. Change the source of the image, the state behind the eyes, and the reflection has to adjust. Not instantly, not without friction, but inevitably. This is where the idea of frequency stops sounding like a cliché and becomes practical. The field doesn't read your affirmations. It doesn't respond to the words you post, the quotes you share, or the persona you perform. It responds to the coherence between what you think, what you feel, and what you genuinely expect. You can talk about abundance while your entire body is braced for lack. You can visualize love while your nervous system is wired to expect rejection. You can write "I am powerful" while your actions keep proving you don't believe it. In that case, your desire is a whisper. Your unconscious state is a shout. The field will mirror the shout. That's why repeating pretty sentences without changing your baseline state feels dead. You're sending two opposite signals at once, static in, static out. So the work is not obsess harder. It's to become a more accurate observer of yourself first. Catch the moment you say, "This always happens to me." That's not a description. That's a command. Catch the moment you think, "People like me never get that." You just collapsed one entire set of timelines without even testing them. You can keep doing that unconsciously, or you can begin to treat your own attention as something sacred and dangerous, because it is. You don't need 100 techniques. You need a few simple practices done with honesty. For one day, audit your attention like a scientist. Set a reminder a few times. Every time it goes off, ask, "What am I observing right now? Is it a version of reality I want to keep feeding or just the most familiar one?" Write it down. Not to judge yourself, but to finally see the pattern. You'll quickly realize how little of your focus is chosen, and how much is just old programming running itself. From there, you can begin to redirect, not with fake positivity, but with deliberate selection. When your mind reaches for the usual problem, interruption, or doom scenario, don't pretend it isn't there. See it, name it, and then ask, what else could I observe in this moment that doesn't collapse the same outcome again? Maybe it's a small possibility, a tiny opening, a single action you can take instead of replaying the loop. It will feel weak at first. The old story will feel stronger. That's normal. You've been collapsing that one for years. Of course it's stable. But every time you choose a different observation, a different meaning, a different response, a different micro-action, you're running a new line of code in the field. You're not just thinking different thoughts. You're training your nervous system to accept a different baseline as normal. And as that baseline shifts, your external reality starts to rearrange. New people notice you. Old patterns feel uncomfortable instead of familiar. Certain environments become unlivable. Certain opportunities suddenly feel obvious. From the outside, people call it luck. From the inside, you know it's selection. One more layer, and then you have enough to apply. Behind all of this, the thoughts, the emotions, the habits, there is something quieter. The part of you that can watch your own mind without getting dragged around by it. The silent observer. Every time you catch yourself and say, "I always sabotage myself," there's a vantage point behind that sentence that is not the sabotage. It's the awareness of it. If you spend even a few minutes a day sitting in that awareness, watching your thoughts like traffic, watching your reactions without instantly obeying them, you weaken the old code. You realize you are not the loop. You are the one seeing the loop. And from that place, you can choose. Stay identified with the loop, and your observation will always collapse the same reality. Shift into the observer, and your perception becomes fluid again. Options appear where there were none. Timelines you never considered begin to feel possible. That is not fantasy. It's the natural consequence of reclaiming your attention from autopilot. You were never meant to be a passive witness to a fixed world. You were always the active observer inside a field of possibilities. So the question you need to sit with now is simple and ruthless. If every act of focus is a vote, if every repeated observation is collapsing one version of you into reality, what are you about to select next? The algorithm can't answer that. Your past can't answer that. Only the observer behind your eyes can. And the moment you start using that power on purpose, you stop just seeing reality and start projecting something entirely different into it.